The anime started as a young girl is left all alone after a group of goblins attacked the carriage she was riding on. The goblins go to end her life as well, but a mysterious boy arrives to protect her. Years later, our protagonist named Laust is asked he would like to join a girls' party, and everyone around is shocked to hear that the girl wants to team up with him. Laust is shocked himself, so the girl points out that his sign is clearly asking to recruit people to his party. This girl insists to joining him, and she declares that she is a martial artist. Laust introduces himself as sort of a healer, but an employee of the Adventurers Guild rushes to stop the girl from making the biggest mistake of her life. Her name is Amherst, and she warns the girl named Narsena not to join Laust's party. Amherst reveals that this guy has been given the nickname the Incompetent Laust. He is a healer, but he only knows the beginner magic spell called Heal. He is a labyrinth orphan, and just like the rest of the parentless children, he grew up as an adventurer. However, even after all these years, Laust can't even use an area heal or a high heal spell. He is known by all as an absolute failure of a human being. Despite all this, Laust managed to join a party called Lightning Sword. That is until recently, when he was kicked for not being able to use detoxification magic. Everyone knows how incompetent he is, so no one ever invites him to join their parties. Amherst warns that Narsena will never be able to make any money if she parties up with Laust, but Narsena reveals that she already has plenty of money. Amherst panicked when she sees how much cash Narsena was just carrying around, and she explains that most of the adventurers in this town are gangsters. Everyone looks pretty menacing, so Amherst tells Narsena to never show such large amounts of money. Narsena graciously thanks her, and Amherst can tell that she is pretty new to this whole adventuring thing. Amherst offered to introduce Narsena to a nice beginner's party, but the little grifter says that she will have to charge Narsena for her services. Narsena surprisingly rejects the scammer because she has been wanting to join Laust's party for a really long time. Laust and Narsena to sign some papers to make the party official, and Narsena stares a hole right through Laust's skull. She admires him a lot for some reason, and she's relieved to finally meet him again. The little weirdo is startled when Laust asked her to sign her name, but she gathers herself. Laust pays the guild fee, and their party is now official. Outside, Laust explains that no one has ever explored the deepest part of the Marmat labyrinth. There are still many mysteries inside, and no one even knows who the final boss is. Many adventurers have dreams of finding vast riches inside, so they have gathered a Marmat city, making it one of the largest cities in the nation. Laust is a psychopath, as he wants to go to the labyrinth right this second, so Narsena wonders if that's really okay since they've just formed their party a couple of hours ago. Also, before leaving, Amherst told Laust that he could only take Narsena to the grasslands because she is still a novice. The labyrinth leaks magic power to a few places around it, and it causes monsters to spawn there. The grasslands are one of these places, but only weak monsters spawn there. It's the best place for beginners, but it's too big, and it's hard to find monsters. The labyrinth is the exact opposite, as it's filled with monsters, and that's exactly what Laust is looking for. He assures Narsena that they won't have any problems as long as they don't go too deep inside, and he can handle things if they get bad. Laust is strangely confident for a healer, but he says it's nothing, and they continue on. When they arrive, Narsena insists on taking the lead. She is a martial artist, so it's only right for Laust back her up from behind as the healer. Laust is happy with her confidence, but he wonders if she can really fight. Narsena quickly proves herself as she beats down a group of goblins, and Laust is thoroughly impressed. He explains that the guild buys the magic stones dropped by the monsters, and that's how most adventurers make their living. The stones are valuable because they can be used for many things, but Laust points out that she should know this already even as a beginner. Unfortunately, the magic stones of goblins aren't worth very much, so they will have to defeat more powerful monsters if they want to make the big bucks. The two will agree to go deeper into the dungeon to earn more cash, and Narsena who vows to protect the weak healer if anything happens. Moments later, Laust is the one protecting Narsena as he stops her from stepping on a trap. He shows her where her grave was just about to be, and he explains that he was able to save her because he noticed a different color tiles. Finding traps is usually a thief's job, so Narsena wonders how Laust was able to do it as a healer. Laust simply explains that he has been an adventurer for a really long time, so he has picked up a couple skills here and there. Deeper in the dungeon, the two spot half-orcs, but it shouldn't be at this level of the dungeon. Half-orcs are known as mid-level demons, and their robust bodies make them very difficult to beat. Their power is equal to monsters on the lower levels of the labyrinth, so they should never appear in the upper levels. Narsena wonders if this is the time to run away, but Laust is confident that they can defeat it if they work together. Laust doesn't want to force her, but she surprisingly agrees as she trusts his judgment. Narsena starts off the fight, but she is startled when her first attack makes her feel like he's kicking a brick wall. Luckily, the beast is pretty slow, but Narsena still ends up taking some damage. The fight quickly goes bad for her as she is cornered, but to be surprisingly isn't able to finish her off. Just then Narsena can only stare in amazement as she sees the Laust rescued her just in time by plunging his sword right into the orc's chest. Laust is glad to see the Narsena was okay, but she can only wonder if Laust is really just a healer. Laust brushes the question off again and explains that his years of working as an adventurer have led to him learning a few close combat techniques. Narsena says that his attack didn't seem like a simple technique, but Laust distracts her by pointing out that she is injured. Narsena isn't too worried about it, but Laust is a healer through and through, so he knows that even the smallest wounds need proper treatment. Narsena insists that she is okay, but Laust steals her anyway. The magic stone left by the orc is much bigger than the goblins, and it has way more magic power too. This means that it will be worth a pretty penny. Laust explains that he has seen what he wanted to see at a Narsena in terms of her fighting ability. They have also earned a good amount of money, so they can head home now, but he leaves the decision to Narsena. She says that she can still fight, so the two go on to do some more hunting. Afterwards, Amherst is amazed to see how many monsters they defeated in just one day. Amherst realizes that Laust must have taken the newbie to the labyrinth, and what's worse is that them having an orc stone means that he took her to the middle level. Laust corrects her by explaining that they only went to the upper level. The orc shouldn't have been there, but this matches up with what the other adventurers have been saying as well. The higher-ups have also been very busy recently, so Amherst thinks that something is happening in the labyrinth. Amherst's mood quickly changes as she is happy to pay them for their stones. Narsena is weirded out by how excited she is, so Laust explains that guild employees get a pay raise when they buy magic stones. This is only true when it's the adventures they are responsible for, which means that the more they make, the more Amherst makes. Laust is shocked by how much the payout is, and Amherst has to remind him to split it with Narsena. Laust would never forget, but he is surprised because even after splitting it, it's still 10 times more than he has ever earned. Laust goes into a deep depression when he realizes what this means. Amherst explains to Narsena that he was just getting fooled when he was a member of the Lightning Sword Party, and they never gave him his fair share of the rewards. Narsena is infuriated by this, so she demands that the guild do something. The decision is up to Laust, so he decides to just move on because he is happy with his new party and he wants to forget about the old one. The pair leaves, but a mysterious man watches them. Later, the greedy Amherst happily consoles her earnings, but she is startled by the man. Sam is her boss, and he just hopes that Amherst didn't help Laust find a new party. Amherst explains that she doesn't have the overpowered convincing ability that it would take to convince someone to join Laust's party. Instead, there was just a girl that saw something special in Laust. Sam seems to know who the blue-haired girl is, but it concerns him for some reason. That night, Laust is surprised to learn that the word of him having a new party member has already spread around the city. The incompetent Laust is pretty well known, so him finding a fool to join his party is a big deal. Laust prepares to reserve a room, and Narsena is startled by the thought of sharing a room with Laust. Laust decides that they should sleep in separate rooms, but this seems to disappoint Narsena. The two head to their rooms for the night, and Narsena thinks back to when she was healed. Turns out that Narsena was the girl in the carriage, and that was the guy who rescued her. She was thankful after he healed for, but Laust apologized for not being able to do more. Narsena was strangely positive, even though I'm pretty sure that the goblins ended the lives of everyone else who must have been in the carriage. She didn't seem to care and just vowed to become an adventurer. Narsena wanted to join Laust's party one day, and she promised to protect him. Narsena has been training very hard since then, and she has waited a long time to be with Laust. When she heard that Laust was kicked from his party, she immediately rushed to the city. The little stalker is pleased to see that her plan has worked perfectly. She formed a party with Laust, and they even defeated an orc. She is doing it all for him, so she becomes depressed when she thinks about how Laust didn't even recognize who she was. That's understandable since her appearance has changed so much, but that isn't all that has changed. Laust is much stronger than before, and he doesn't seem to need her protection. Narsena snaps herself out of her depression and reminds herself that she promised to protect Laust no matter what. The remotivated Narsena prepares for bed, but one thing still doesn't make sense to her. She can't figure out why people would call Laust incompetent when he is actually really powerful. A look back shows how Laust's old party was in really bad shape after getting wrecked by a fearsome dragon. Laust healed the girl, but he could not detoxify her ailments. He assured her that the poison would go away if she just rested for a bit, but this just upset the girl. The party began to fall apart because the leader needed them in the fight, but the girl was in no shape to battle. The group continued to argue because Laust told them that they would need antidotes, but they couldn't afford any. The leader called Laust the useless piece of trash, and he told their mages to attack with all the magic she had. Her fireball only infuriated the terrifying beast, so the leader became frustrated by how incompetent the entire team was. He realized that no one would be able to lead a group of losers, so he retreated while recommending that everyone else do the same. The mage immediately took off and Laust helped the injured girl. Afterwards, Laust was kicked from the lightning sword party. He took all the blame for them failing to defeat the Hydra, and he was kicked for being a flawed healer. Laust pointed out that they actually failed because they were all partying the night before, but this just led to more arguing. The leader decided that the mage would choose who was at fault, but she was intimidated and the blame was put on Laust. Back to the present, Laust wakes up and thinks about how that wasn't the first time something like this happened to him. 6 years ago, Laust's title as the most incompetent healer had already become well known. However, Laust never gave up and wanting to become a great adventurer. A party offered to let him join, so Laust eagerly accepted. Unfortunately, it turned out that they didn't need a healer at all. What they wanted was living bait to attract the attention of monsters. It's common for labyrinth orphans like Laust to be used as living bait, but he wasn't even good at that, and the party was eliminated. Laust always hated pain and despised death, but when he saw a young girl in danger, he put all that aside. Till this day, Laust isn't sure why he went to help her. He fought the goblins the best he could, but he eventually got knocked out. When he woke up, Laust realized that he was not the one that saved the girl. It was a group of knights, and this meant that he was still an incompetent person. However, this was not how the little girl saw things. She thanked Laust because if it wasn't for him, then they wouldn't have survived long enough for help to arrive. Laust healed her, but the girl was horrified to hear how poorly he was treated. Her sympathy made her cry for Laust, and she decided something. She vowed to become an adventurer herself so she could team up with Laust and protect him. The girl was from a noble family, which meant that she could never be an adventurer. Laust knew this well, but her words still encouraged him, and he decided to continue trying to become a great adventurer. He eventually found a teacher and started training. He only learned the most basic healing techniques, but he also acquired many other essential skills for adventurers. Eventually, Laust gained confidence that he had become a great adventurer, and this was when he joined the Lightning Sword. Laust credits to the little girl because her words kept him from giving up on becoming an adventurer. He just thought about her now because he was thinking about giving up again after getting kicked from Lightning Sword. Laust is glad that he didn't give up though, because then he never would have met Narsena. Just then Narsena comes to see him and the two go to get breakfast. After that they head to the labyrinth where they plan to go even deeper. Inside they arrive at a teleportation circle, and it's Narsena's first time seeing one. Every labyrinth has one, and Narsena wonders if we can send them anywhere. Unfortunately, Laust must tell the clueless girl that teleportation circles can only take them to other places with the teleportation circle. Narsena thinks that teleportation circles should just be set up directly inside towns, but she realizes that this would just make it easier for monsters to attack people. Laust must correct her again as he explains that monsters can't even use teleportation circles. The reason teleportation circles aren't in towns is because the skill required to create them was lost hundreds of years ago, and there is no one that can make new ones. The two uses the teleportation circle, and they arrive in the middle level of the labyrinth. The monsters that appear here are very powerful, so they will have to be careful. They eventually run into some monsters, but Narsena's attack doesn't work. Laust explains that it's because she is fighting a leech and it doesn't actually have a physical form. It's a type of monster that transformed from a spirit, so physical attacks are ineffective against it. Monsters like this would be tricky for people like them who can't use magic, so he thinks they should run. Narsena refuses though because she is confident that she can defeat it. The two come up with a plan so Laust gets the leech's attention and there's it towards Narsena. With extreme training some humans and manipulate the power of ki in their bodies. Martial artists like Narsena who have practiced for years are able to do this. This ki allows the user to even attack spirits like the leech. Narsena uses this technique and absolutely destroys the leech. The two heroes celebrate but Narsena is hurt. Laust uses a magic tool that enhances healing effects and he heals Narsena. The magic stones found by adventurers eventually end up in the hands of craftsmen who turn them into magical tools. The leech they just double-team has left the magic core and Narsena wonders how much it will sell for. When they return to the guild, Amherst is once again amazed and grateful for the stones that our pair has brought her. After receiving a surprising amount of money, the duo heads back into town. They stumble upon a large argument and Laust explains that a lot of adventurers have been getting into altercations recently. Lots of troubles making adventures have been showing up and it's starting to disturb the peace of the town. Laust determines that there's nothing they can do about it, so they should just splurge on a fancy meal. Their waitress wonders if Laust can really afford such an expensive meal, but he just tells her to pipe down and get him some beer. Narsena wants to indulge as well, but a child waitress explains that they don't sell alcohol to minors. As feast, Narsena decides to ask about something she has been wondering. She saw a really tall structure in the town but has no entrance or windows. It doesn't look like a monument and there are actually several in towns. Laust doesn't know what they are either, but he did ask some of the townspeople before. The craftsmen told him that they're the ones building it, but not even they know what it is. What's even more strange is that no one knows who the client is that is paying for it. The blueprint for the structure and the payment was brought by an agent, and even behind that agent was another agent. There are a string of agents involved, which makes it very clear that the person behind it all does not want to be found. The structures aren't really bothering anyone, so other people don't really question it. Laust thinks that they should be making a city wall instead, but Narsena likes the city better this way. Laust points out that they are vulnerable to an invasion, but Narsena surprisingly says that there is no need for protection. There are more adventures in this town than any she has ever seen before, so thieves and monsters would have no chance during an invasion. Later the two had to sleep for the night. Narsena wants to say something to Laust, but she ends up chickening out. Narsena thinks about how she wanted to share a room with him, but she just can't get herself to tell him. Laust meanwhile thinks about how nice it is to be teamed up with someone. He wonders if the girl he met years ago will show up, but either way he credits her for helping them get this far as an adventurer. The next day, the leader of the Lightning Sword introduces a new healer to the team. The girl introduces herself, but the others aren't very enthusiastic. The leader's extremely positive though, and he declares that they will surely be able to defeat Hydra this time. Elsewhere, an ominous man is told that someone called the Sleeping Beauty is in a certain town. Hansam is the one giving this information, and he reveals that the Sleeping Beauty has teamed up with Laust. The man is concerned because they are running out of time, so Hansam must kick Laust out of the city immediately. And with that, we have come to the end of this part. Stay tuned for next part. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates.